even the people who claim they hate Jay-Z, they have to listen so they can hate constructively.
So remember, I referenced Jay's interview. We talked about Book of 𝐻 and his interview with was it 𝐾𝐄𝐃?
𝐾𝐄, yes.
One thing that he mentioned was making meaningful music, and he also mentioned helping people in the community, helping other creatives. But my question would be, because as a fan, I'm biased. I would love to hear another record of him making quote unquote meaningful music, but I don't know what would be more impactful. The Jay that is the executive, the person that can sew back into the culture and create labels and create whatever, or is it the guy that can just put out another album and inspire people that way? What do you think would be more impactful? Which move would be more impactful? Because he talked about address both. He wants to,
certainly not the album.
Not the album at this point?
No, not at this
point. So at this point, Jay dropping the album is not going to be as impactful as what he can do as the executive. And
what do we consider impacting whom?
For the album or just in general?
And either. Okay. We're talking about impact, so define it.
Impact would be aspiring artists. Impact would be current creatives that are involved in the culture at certain levels. Impact would be, from a business standpoint, people that are aspiring to be a part of hip hop. And then he also mentioned black culture as well. So, you want to say black creatives, then you can say that as well. I think the album would hit, Jay. I think the album would hit. I'm not going to say as impactful, but I think the album would hit at this point because it's been a little bit. And people always want to know what he's talking about.
I think it would, but I'll just be honest. For lack of a better term, the whole idea of grown man rap, people who are speaking from the perspective of people who have lived to a certain place and are comfortable with themselves in the place that they're in. As much as we love Michael, the Killer Mike album, it hasn't, people don't talk about it as much as they should. As much as, I remember, one of the first episodes I came on was the 444 episode.
Yeah.
Where we talked about that album, and I don't think people really, especially after it lost all 8 Grammys it was nominated for, it was like, there are people who just, who don't like that album. It doesn't touch them in the way it would, when Jay was rapping he always had that content, but then when he does an album where he doesn't care if any of the songs go to the club or go to radio, where he's just doing records that are not only personable but meaningful to the culture and people who are of a certain age, just doesn't have the same impact as when he did Hard Knock Life, as far as how many people were involved in it. And
I think 444 was. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Terry.
Yeah, I kind of disagree with that. I think there's definitely an avenue and a lane for that type of hip hop.
There's an avenue for it. Definitely.
We all are pretty much products of hip hop that have grown in it. You know what I'm saying? So we're still here and we're still listening. We're actually kind of grabbing for the grown man style hip hop because that's where we're at in life. So we don't want to necessarily hear a Hard Knock Life from Jay-Z because he's not living a hard knock life. I want to hear the introspective, grown Jay-Z that's been through things that can still put you up on game about certain stuff. That's just like you brought up Michael. You got Fontaine, Little Brother, and them. You got Nas doing the same thing now. I figure anybody that is still out here and able to do hip hop in the purest form and still be talking about something should keep on going.
Oh no, I'm not saying that he shouldn't keep on going. I would love to hear a Jay-Z project. I'm just saying what his impact can be outside of the booth and trying to sell me a CD and being on tour.
Yeah,
I think is much greater as far as the initiatives he has with prison reform.
That's what I'm looking for.
Where I'm looking for when he talks about. He's had some missteps as far as his social initiative programs with the NFL. I think the one thing that's really going to dog him, probably, because when they talk about his story is the fact that we're beyond kneeling. And
that's not going anywhere. That's going to always be around.
And it's fine to have missteps, you know what I'm saying? Because I think what he has done as far as you see some of the initiatives the NFL has taken on as far as social justice that honestly that aren't really talked about, that's Jay-Z's impact. So I think outside of selling me a 50-minute CD, the things that he's working on as far as financial empowerment, actually talking to people about, how to, and not just people who are already rich, You know, that's the thing. Like it's only so much you could do for people who are already rich. You
That's
know,
fair.
but when you talk about the actual social initiatives that he's a part of and he can bring light to, I think those are things that he can do every day, or he can talk about those things on a regular basis. You know, for him to, I'd rather him go to the Breakfast Club or whatever platform and talk about those things as opposed to like, oh, this was my inspiration on track 13 of my new album. Don't get me wrong. I love stuff like that. But I think overall, impact, the actual impact that someone like Jay-Z could have is so much greater outside of actual music.
I think he can do both. Because even in that same interview, he spoke on being in a place of being vulnerable and being able to put that on record. And he brought up 444 as that example. He's saying, too, that he's not done with music until he's not either inspired or pretty much just can't do it, doesn't have the love for it. He still has both. So he's like, I'm still out here. So whenever something comes out, it just comes out. But we're not pressing. He's not pressing himself for it. So I kind of respect him for that, because he's not just trying to turn out something just so the streets can have it. It's more so when I'm feeling a certain type of way and I got that energy in me, I'm going to give it to you.
And plus, he did like an album a year for a long time.
He did.
You know,
I lose sight of that sometimes, how much product he put out.
Yeah. So, I mean, you know, and this is when like basically everybody was taking, you know, between 2 and 3 records years off between records.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
From that, you know, from Reasonable Doubt through probably the Black Album, that was
every year.
Every year.
Yeah. Yep. I like what you highlighted about his outside of music stuff, because there's a lot of impact there. Sometimes we don't see it because sometimes it's a lot of his stuff is behind the scenes. He's not pushing a lot of stuff up to the forefront, but he's still getting stuff done. So, but that album definitely would be well received.
Because I would go to it immediately if they said, you know, day after Thanksgiving, Jay-Z's putting out an album. I'd be like, okay, I'm staying up to listen, just like I did for Kendrick. Even the people who claim they hate Jay-Z, they have to listen so they can hate constructively. So I mean, it's not. I'm not
even
saying
the Jay-Z haters up at midnight. Huh?
Exactly. So they can tear it apart.
All right. Well, shout out to Hov, man. I don't know what the next play is going to be, but as a hip hop fan and enthusiast, I'll be waiting.